So hello everybody here. I'd like to welcome you here to, well, not simply to Trinity, but also to this talk on sociology. My name's David Landy, and what I'm going to be doing is for the next 20 minutes I'll be giving a very brief introduction to sociology, what sociology is in general, and how do we do sociology here in Trinity College. And also, basically, what you'll get out of sociology. Not simply what jobs you'll get out of sociology, because these days there are no jobs, but also what, and once you study sociology, you'll understand why. That's the beauty of the subject. But also actually what you yourselves will learn from the whole discipline of sociology. So I'll be speaking for about 20 minutes on this, after which you can ask me all the intelligent, smart questions that you like. And I probably won't be able to answer them, but please do feel free to go ahead and ask. So the first thing I want to start off with is the question of what is sociology? What is the whole discipline about? I mean, there's an easy answer to that, a quick and easy answer, that sociology is the study of society. But like most quick, easy answers, it's meaningless. Because economics is also the study of society, politics, also the study of society. All the other human and social sciences are also the study of society. So what's so specific about sociology? And, well, sociologists are in disagreement with this, but the basic idea is the idea that reality, the reality that we live in, is a socially constructed reality. And just as it has been socially constructed, just as we socially construct the world around us, so we can deconstruct it, so we can actually understand this aspect of the world around us. And what we want to do in sociology is see these broader social dimensions of our personal lives. And it's not just a way of interpreting the world. Sociology, you might have heard, is a left-wing discipline. And it has that reputation because sociology traditionally has also been a way of changing the world, trying to affect and alter the world that we live in. And the discipline always enjoins people to think sociologically, to use what C. Wright Mills called about 50 years ago, to use the sociological imagination. So what's meant by this idea, the sociological imagination? Well, in talking about this, C. Wright Mills gave an interesting picture of society. It's one where every individual is alone, encased in our own private misfortunes, unable to summon up for ourselves the resources to cope with these troubles which come from sources outside and bigger than ourselves. And for Mills, the promise of sociology was that it allows us to see that these events that seem to concern the individual actually involve wider society. And by seeing these private troubles as public issues, we can somehow resolve these issues. So the example he gave, which is a pertinent example today as well, is the example of unemployment. Now, unemployment is obviously, if you've ever experienced it, a private trouble. It's a private trouble, not simply because when you're unemployed, you've next to no money, not simply because you've no status in society if you're unemployed, but also like you've no structure to your day. It's no coincidence that unemployment often leads to depression and other personal psychological issues. So it is very much a personal thing. But if we talk about a city of 1 million people and 100,000 people are unemployed, reasonably you could argue that unemployment is also a public issue. Something that's not just experienced by the individual, but experienced by all of society, and so should be addressed by all of society. Another example, again pertinent, is the example of migration. Now, I'm imagining every single one of you here are thinking of migrating, are thinking of the possibilities of leaving this country. And this is obviously a really private issue. It affects your family ties and personal ties. It'll affect your friendships. It'll affect your future, your possibilities, your whole life. But of course, migration isn't just a personal issue. It is a very public social issue, both immigration and emigration. And the other reason I'm mentioning this is migration and migration studies is one of the main things that we study in the department here. So if you're interested in this idea of migration, race, ethnicity, European societies, this is very much at the heart of what we do in sociology in Trinity. But sociology isn't actually just to look at the various troubles of society. The promise is that you can look at all the actions in society within this broader social framework. And giving an obvious example with drinking a cup of coffee, which I've been doing. What, sociologically, could we actually find to say about this fairly innocuous piece of behavior as drinking a coffee? Well, I mean, if you look at the thing itself, the actual cup of coffee itself, it's a drug. This is what it is. But it's a very strange type of drug because like alcohol, but unlike many other drugs, it's an acceptable drug in our society. And why is this acceptable? Others are not acceptable. Why in other societies are drugs like alcohol and even coffee less acceptable? We ask these questions about society not just to find out about coffee, but because it will give us an insight into how societies are run and the issue of cultural differences. And coffee isn't simply the thing in the cup. Coffee, the second thing, is it possesses symbolic value. That what sociologists look at, it would be the ritual surrounding drinking a cup of coffee. That coffee is a means of structuring the day. That myself, I can't start the day without a cup of coffee. And the issue with this is that drinking and eating in all societies provides occasions for interaction, for the enactment of social rituals, for the transmission of social values. And so if we look at coffee as an element of social interaction, we can find out a lot about society by studying these very obvious social rituals and these very obvious elements of popular culture, which is something else we do in the department. And the third thing about coffee is not just a drug, it's not just something that possesses symbolic value, it encapsulates economic and social relationships. Both the coffee, the way we consume coffee, is a legacy of European colonial history. The mass consumption of coffee only really started about 200 years ago. It derived from the colonial exploitation of most of the world. But it's not just relations in the past that coffee illustrates, but ones that are taking place right now. Coffee links people across the world. It's the second most valuable commodity in the world. And there's a prize if anyone can tell me what the most valuable commodity in the world is. Anyone? Sorry? Oil. Nice going. It's oil, coffee, and then I think bananas, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to put my life on the line on bananas. So the thing about coffee is it still stands at the heart of questions that we ask about globalization, how we link ourselves with the rest of the world. Is it a relationship of exploitation? Issues of environmental destruction. Coffee is incredibly environmentally destructive. Issues of human rights. The coffee people producing the coffee are exploited abominably usually. And it's not just the questions about this, but the choices we make and the actions we make in society to deal with these questions of environmental destruction or human rights that sociologists are interested in. So we'd be interested in things like the fair trade movement. Because once you start thinking sociologically and acting collectively, that process can also and should also be studied. So that's kind of broadly the idea of sociology. What you do is you try and see everything in social terms because it will explain so much about the world around you. So I want to turn next to actually what we do in Trinity and how we study sociology. There's various ways you can do it. I think I have some kind of clicker which I've lost. Yeah, typical absent-minded professor. Ah, here we are. Yeah, the ways of studying sociology. That it really depends which aspect of sociology you're interested in. So the first thing, which is studying sociology and social policy, if you're interested in social work and affecting government social policy, this is what you should be studying. This is the very practical, hands-on element of sociology. And its average point is 435 points to do it. Then there's the more, I suppose you could say, theoretical side of sociology, which you do in PPES, philosophy, political science, economics, and sociology, where sociology is just one of a bundle of other courses. And you can decide as the PPS course goes on in its second, third, and fourth year, which of these things you'd like to specialize in. That's an extremely popular course, which is why it's 525 points. The other way you can do it is studying economic sociology, seeing sociology as part of business and as part of business studies, studying society in order to better be able to kind of get involved in the commercial aspect of life. And that's reasonably popular as well. That's what's done in BES, Business Economics and Social Studies, which was 480. Then you can do various two subjects. You can do sociology with virtually everything else in Trinity College. And then there's a whole range, depending what you want to do it with, there's a whole range of points, which is 390 for sociology and modern Irish, all the way up to 560 for the geniuses who want to do sociology and psychology. The average TSM points for sociology is around the mid-400s. So you can actually combine sociology with a wide range of other things. So what do we do then in sociology? The modules that we do in the course. So the first thing that we do is in first year, if you're doing either PPES or BESS, you will do an Introduction to Sociology course, along with various other introductory programs. Where it could be Introduction to Economics, Political Science. If you're doing history, you'll do the first year history modules. And the Introduction to Sociology courses, it gives you an overview of the main interests of sociology, of gender, of European societies, of race and ethnicity, of employment, and so on and so forth. And after doing that general stuff, you start to specialize from second year onwards. So in second year, you do issues like gender, body and society, European societies, and you also do Introduction to Social Research. And this is continued in third year, where you do a module in Researching Society. Oh yeah, the clicker. And the value and the advantages of doing the modules in social research is that a lot of people from sociology do actually manage to get jobs, unbelievably, and do get jobs doing social research, either doing social research for government bodies, or for semi-state bodies, or for private bodies. So this element is a very useful general skill for yourselves to learn. Besides that, we study social theory, race, ethnicity, identity, and globalization. So again, it's the idea of studying society, not just studying Irish society, but studying our society as part of a more general global society. And the senior soft year, again, there's more specialization, where you can do migration, that specific area of race and ethnicity. You can do popular culture, digital lives. You can also do conflict studies. And that links very much in with our masters. We run this internationally acclaimed masters, actually, in the department on race, ethnicity, and conflict, where we study very critically the theoretical ideas behind these things. And you also do a dissertation seminar. And this is the idea that after studying how to do social research, you finally get your hands dirty and do some actual social research. That the dissertations, some of the dissertations I'm supervising at the moment that fourth year students are doing, one of them is dealing with issues of small group identity and talking about how when people move from college into wider life, how does that small social group they're in, how does that get affected? Somebody else is studying how migrants coming from Nigeria maintain links with Nigerians. Somebody else maintains links with their tribes in Nigeria. Somebody else is studying the issue of the winter war in Finland and how that's transmitted and how that transmits a sense of Finnish identity. So really, when you're doing this dissertation, you do whatever interests you. There's a wide range of things that interest you, and people doing this usually find it extremely fruitful and extremely interesting to do their own dissertation. So that's the kind of general module overview. And as I say, one of the main things that we do and that we study is the issue of migration. And when we do and study migration, we don't just study migration as a sense of Irish people emigrating. We also study what happens when immigrants come to this country. And we study the issue of integration. And as I say, Trinity is at this stage, leading institute in studying issues of how migrants are being dealt with, and take a very critical approach to migration and issues of integration. And what we try and do is try and deal with this issue that, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Ireland had very few migrants. Now, about 10% of the population migrants are descended from migrants. So how do you deal with this? How does our society deal with this? And how do the migrants themselves, and how does people living in this country deal with this idea of trying to balance diversity while at the same time trying to maintain some level of social cohesion? And the idea of this is that we try and contribute to public debates in the country about it. As I say, we would take a very critical view on what's usually meant by integration. Usually it is meant like this, putting a happy face on a migrant, telling migrants, you should be like us, even when we say you are not like us because you're a migrant. So we look at this in a very critical way, and the reason we look at this in a very critical way is to try and ensure that proper integration manages to happen in this country. And so if we think of the PhD students, if you want to continue on from the masters, as I say, we have this masters in race, ethnicity, conflict. A third of the PhD students are working on projects related to European employment and migration and race. And there's many undergraduate modules that we do that emphasize this issue. So I'm going to leave it at that, and leave this because I think I've been talking for long enough, and this is, I'm sure, one of about 1 million talks that you've been hearing today. So I just want to leave it at this idea that what sociology is this critical way of understanding the world that you live in. One that does open up a host of new jobs, but as I said, even if it doesn't open up the new jobs, and even if you're forced to migrate, at least you'll understand why. Thanks very much. So before you all leave, before you all leave, are there any questions or comments anyone has? Well, all leave. Thank you very much.